Hi. So I think the word DePIN has been discussed many times. So I just want to focus on the economic elements of DePIN. I think it has the ability to create sustainable networks, of course, and infrastructure, but we can go beyond that in sustainable value loops. So I wanted to introduce you all guys, like if you can speak like a minute for your project, for yourself, and give some quick intro on what it is, the infrastructure that you're building, the traditional problem, the Web 2 problem that you're solving with a Web 3 approach, so people can understand the sustainability aspect of your economy, basically.
Sure, happy to start. Hey everyone, Michael, co-founder and CEO of Zero G Labs. At Zero G, we're building the largest AI layer 1. And as part of the infrastructure stack, we've built an ultra-high performance layer 1 system, obviously, but we also have a compute layer where we do inference and fine-tuning, and in the future also full-on AI training. Then we have a storage system, and then we also have something called a service marketplace, which is effectively like an app store layer. So another way to think about this from a Web 2 standpoint, since you mentioned that, is if you combined AWS plus OpenAI and then decentralized it, that's essentially what we're building, so that you can have fully on-chain AI in the future. One of the key challenges is when we first entered the space is Ethereum does about 80 kilobytes per second in data throughput. Modern data centers do hundreds of gigabytes, even a terabyte plus per second in data throughput. So how do we bridge that gap? So we created an architecture that can, per consensus layer, have about 50 gigabytes per second in data throughput. And then we also figured out how to horizontally scale the consensus layer so that we can have, in effect, infinite data throughput for any modern application. And then we did the same thing on the execution layer, so effectively you can have infinite TPS, if you will, for any type of AI application, any type of major consumer application that will use AI in the future, so that anything can be built on chain.
Great, thank you so much. My name is David Chen. I'm a co-founder of GEODNET. So in GEODNET, we are trying to provide the largest RTK network. So basically, we are provide 100 times more accurate than regular GPS. So regular GPS, we have a typical arrow between 1 meter to 5 meters, which is good for end-to-end navigation. But for a lot of modern applications, it's not enough. So RTK is designed to solve this problem. But the current Web 2 application is not enough. So we have Web 2 companies like Trimble in the United States, Hexagon in the EU. They have like about 5,000 base stations, and they cover a very limited area, and the cost is really high. So we are 3 times as big as today right now. We have over 16,000 base stations right now, and the cost to use our network is about 1/5 or 1/10 of the cost. So we will power a lot of applications like agriculture, like drone and the survey. And one of the most important customer for us is United States Department of Agriculture. So we are providing really cheap solution for the farmers, so they can utilize our precision network to reduce their costs and empower a lot of applications. So the challenge for us is, we have to balance between the Web 2 customers' demand and also Web 3 suppliers. And for us, we have more than 20 paid customers already up to date. We will continue to grow our coverage on that section. And also, we are also providing Web 3 to enable a lot of Web 3 applications.
Hey guys, I'm Kuleen. I do AI stuff at the Solana Foundation. But the other thing I'll mention is I actually spent the last 2 years leading our DePIN efforts as well. And so this intersection is something that I care deeply about. For those of you who maybe don't know, Solana is L1, general purpose L1, and our goal is to have Solana be the internet's capital markets. and for the network to be as fast and cheap and scalable as the laws of physics will allow, so that people can build real digital economies on top of it. And I think DePIN economies are maybe the most interesting real economies that will get built in crypto. And so I've spent a lot of time in the last 2 years, 2+ years now, working with DePIN teams, including GEODNET, thinking about how do you design the economic systems to really build out these infrastructure networks. So yeah, excited for this conversation.
Hi, I'm Francis, the CTO at iExec. For those who don't know us, we've been around and we're celebrating our 8 years anniversary. iExec is an infrastructure project focusing on ownership, monetization, and privacy. So basically, we provide an infrastructure with servers based on the T, so it's a T-based infrastructure. And on top of that, we provide developers with tools to easily build, deploy, monetize, and own their applications. And the idea is that for the end users, they can enter into a model where everything they do is private, confidential, and end users can as well monetize whatever they own through the protocol without losing the ownership. So it's the infrastructure, the tools, and economic model that create a network effect between developers, infrastructure providers, and end users.
So I just very briefly wanna hear from each one of you the so-called DePIN flying wheel of your economy, basically. So, because obviously it's very difficult to bootstrap digital or physical network. So we use tokens to do that. By the way, for context, I'm from WeatherXM. I'm CEO of WeatherXM. And in WeatherXM, we incentivize our community to deploy weather stations. We reward them with our token for their data contribution and for maintaining the equipment, the devices that they deploy. And we use this data to provide accurate weather services to enterprises. And we ask the customers to pay us with our own token. So that's how we close the loop of our economy, basically. That's how we bootstrapped the network. So do you want to briefly touch how the equivalent of that for your own projects?
Maybe I can start. At iExec, we have we came through the same problem. So we have 3 stakeholders in our model. We have hardware providers, we have developers, and we have end users. And really what creates the relationship between those guys is the token, our token, the RLC token. So we don't actually take any fees on what each stakeholder is doing. So for example, as a developer, I can build and deploy an application on the iExec protocol. I can define the conditions for that application to be used and consumed by end users. As a infrastructure or machine provider, I can create a worker pool on the iExec infrastructure and define the conditions for my machines to be used. Conditions could be the price, what application can run, which users can run application on my infrastructure. And as an end user, of course, I can pay to use an application, but also I can define that for any data that I create, I'm going to be incentivized. So for us, bootstrapping it is really how do we create that network effect between those participants. From our point of view, we are also running part of that infrastructure, but that's not our vision. Our vision is to have that infrastructure fully decentralized and having partners contributing their machines as well into that economy. So it's really making or triggering that network effect between the participants. So to do that, we decided to go for developers. So those are the guys who are creating the most value, we believe, in our model. So we have grants, we have funding, dilutive, non-dilutive, to make to trigger the flow. And around that, we also have value proposition for end users with application like the Privacy Pass, which is a solution where end users can come and protect some assets. And on the other hand, you have builders who can help them monetize those assets. For example, you can protect your email address, and get privacy-preserved marketing communication without revealing your email. So we are going both ways to trigger that economy.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is actually one of the most interesting, like, intellectual and like survival challenges to be solved for DePIN networks. And actually, this is something even that Solana, the network, has to think about in a way. So like, I think basically the trade-off that DePIN networks make is they basically say, okay, at day zero, like, you know, and I hope there are no securities law lawyers in the room, but like, at day zero for a network, it's cheaper and more efficient to give equity in the form of tokens as the incentive alignment between stakeholders and the project than it is to give cash. And I think that's a really powerful thing. And you see this actually dynamic not just in DePIN networks, right? Like for any startup, if they want to have advisors on board, in the early days, they're not giving advisors huge cash packages. They're giving advisors like maybe like, you know, 10 basis points equity. And so to me, DePIN basically just scales up that model. And the thing that as a network you have to figure out is at what point is it too expensive for you to be giving the like equity form of compensation relative to cash? And like, how quickly do you have to grow the network such that the equity form of getting like the network going is worth it? So I think that's the thing that people have to think about. And it's interesting, in the context of Solana, this is actually a discussion now of like, is the network paying too much for security? Because you know, you can think about any L1 blockchain ultimately as like a DePIN network where the node providers are providing a service. That service, in this case, is like compute for the Solana network. And you know, it was worth it in the early days to pay a lot of SOL to get people to be validated as the network because we needed the network to be like sufficiently decentralized and secure. You could argue that now we're like, you know, the networks may be paying billions of dollars a year to invalidated rewards, and maybe that's not actually needed because we've like reached a sufficient level of economic activity that you don't have to pay that much for security, or at least that like even if we paid less, you'd still be sufficiently secure. So I think you always have to think about like, are you paying the right amount?
Yeah, so in GEODNET, we are very lucky because in Web2 space, there was already a similar solutions to that. And we know clearly at day one that if we provide this kind of data available, we will have defined users and applications. And actually, two of our co-founders, they've been in this space before they enter into the crypto space. So we know clearly that we will have this coverage, and we can sell data to our customers. So that's the very basic concept we start with. And when we published our white paper 3 years ago in the ION conference, which is one of the best conference in this field, we reward the best paper reward. And it's widely, you know, accepted by Web2 space. So from that day, we start to build with crypto, with tokens to grow our network coverage. And actually, it's very successful. We see about 400% growth year over the year. And we have now 16,000 base stations, which is 3 times bigger than any Web2 competitors. At the same time, we've been established about more than 20 paid customers to our data service, which create a really good flying wheel for us. You know, we deliver better coverage, we have more customers, and we'll get paid. And then, again, we have additional tokenomics. We will burn 80% of revenue to buy back tokens from public network and burn them. So, which is, you know, very good ecosystem for miners, for investors, and for users. I think that works for us. Maybe we are in a special spot, but certainly that works for us. And I think it probably work for the other DePIN project as well.
Cool. I won't spend too much time on it because it's actually quite simple. As a layer one, Essentially, you attract the best builders, which attracts more users, which attracts liquidity, which attracts more builders. So it's all about network effects fundamentally, because anybody can hire people from your team, anybody can steal your code because it's open source. So it's fundamentally about network effects. That's the only thing that matters as an economic loop for us. And so with that, we've already built the largest AI layer 1 ecosystem of builders on the AI space. We have a big ecosystem fund, 88.8 million. So we're trying to work with the best builders in the space. So always happy to chat more.
Cool. So, okay, let's talk about data. We all produce data, and we all consider that data in our projects are basically the source of value, in addition to the network effects and the community, of course, the people who power the network. So when we started designing WeatherXM back in 2019, we were inspired by Filecoin and Helium. And in WeatherXM, obviously, the weather data produced from the sensors is the asset that we're trying to monetize. And at the time, we couldn't find a technology or even a concept, an approach on how to handle the data that we had in order to capture the maximum value out of them, but at the same time, make the data available to customers, to communities, especially in communities that we know that they could benefit directly from improved weather conditions. So we had this dilemma of, should the data be closed? Should it be open source? And in the end, we landed the dual license approach. What are your thoughts, guys? Like, today, the landscape is completely different. I know that, for example, some of you are actually trying to solve this problem internally. It's part of your mission. So what are your thoughts of how to handle the access to the value of the data being produced, basically?
So it depends on what you use data for. Some people call data the new oil, which I think is not a great analogy, because oil is a commodity. It's essentially fungible, same oil, same oil, but different pieces of data have different pieces of value. Usage-based data, let's say what you wrote on Reddit, may be very different from medical-based data. And so they're not quite the same. So it depends on what is the end purpose that you're utilizing for this particular data. And it now so happens that, especially in the AI space, only less than 1% is publicly available. So that's what OpenAI and Anthropic and many of these companies have already trained on. The vast majority of data, 99%, is actually in private data stores. So how do we make that easily accessible so that we can train models that are significantly outperforming the generalized models? And I think that's where crypto AI has a big advantage as well, because we can use a token-based incentive so that we can actually get access to this particular data. Earlier today, for example, I was talking about visual models. Like, how do visual models learn? Users actually have to share their screen. They have to say, hey, here's what I'm doing exactly. I'm going to YouTube, I'm going to watch this video, I'm clicking this button, and so on. Very sensitive to actually share. But if you have privacy restrictions and you give the right incentives, you can actually gather this data en masse very, very, very rapidly. And so you can really open up new types of models that can do better things for us than the centralized versions, which we call closed AI, which ironically OpenAI is closed AI because of that.
So for us, our data is a little bit different. So for user to get really accurate position service, they need a real-time data feedback from the base stations. So the real-time is critical in our use case. So we need to provide really good SLA and also availability. So if we cannot reach that level of data quality, it becomes useless eventually. So we really need to take all of this into consideration when we build up our infrastructure. So basically, we try to leverage between centralized data store and decentralized data store. And another consideration is, different country, they have different requirements. Fortunately, our users are mostly in the same region as the data provider. Like a European farmer, they need real-time data from their local base stations. which make it less critical. If you move data out of country, you're subject to certain data security policies. So for us, that may be an advantage, but at the other side, we need to make sure we provide really good data, so our customer want to pay for that. And we've been working really hard on it. And it seems like our model seems working very well.
Yeah, I mean, Michael sort of alluded to this earlier, and I 100% agree. It's a very non-standard thing, because like the variance across the use cases and types of data is massive, and the things that you'd care about for different data sets vary drastically. So in some cases, like the only thing that matters is like how granular or how real time can I get certain piece of information. In other cases, the time sensitivity actually doesn't matter at all. You care about like representative sampling across some population if you want to like understand consumer behavior of a certain kind. So it's actually really difficult to categorize. My one observation though, and I think this is something that's like important for the crypto community to digest, I do think we're in the place where now, if some data is freely available, people will do the work to get it. Like I think a lot of websites, a lot of news services, a lot of social media applications have learned this lesson the hard way. Like Reddit probably to some degree is kind of kicking itself for just how important they've been to the success of like the big language models, or Stack Exchange I think is a great example. Stack Exchange, if you look at Stack Exchange usage, it's down like 80% in the last 2-3 years. Why is that? It's because people now go to the LLMs for the questions they used to go to Stack Exchange for. But why is the LLM smart? It's because of Stack Exchange in the first place. So it's like a great example of the thing that actually contributed a lot of the intelligence has like gotten replaced. And so my meta point here is simply that like, I think now if you are generating valuable data, you need to be really intentional about like, are you going to expose it or not? Because if you expose it in a way that is freely scrapable, accessible, it will be accessed.
For iExec, we don't actually generate any data that's really, that can be leveraged by third parties. What we do is give the choice. Basically, what we do is giving an infrastructure and tools that allow builders to own and end users to own what they produce. So we can talk about weather data, and the question is, our point of view is to say we give you the choice to do whatever you want with that data. So as long as you've got true ownership of it, you can decide how and if you want to monetize it through which application. So we believe that data, as long as you find the right counterpart, can be valued, and we provide infrastructure to do that. So to own, builders to build, and valorize any data source. And we see ourselves as the trust layer for AI. So when you look at the AI pipeline, you have the training phase, and we can support giving the ability to end users to monetize their data sets without losing the ownership of that data, contributing to creating new models and getting a shared revenue on that new model that's being created. When it comes to inference, it's exactly the same thing. I could be an end user who created a beautiful prompt generating some cool stuff, and I want to keep that private, but still be able to monetize it and share it with others. So for us, the value proposition is really around ownership, and then the choice to do whatever you want with your piece of data and data sets.
Yep. Okay, I want to touch a last topic because we're going to run out of time soon. So I wanted a comment from you in terms of composability in Web3 and in your project in particular, and how do you see AI accelerating the composability itself, or your project, your network, and so on? And again, to give some context here, in WeatherXM, we use the Helium network to connect our weather stations. We use Arbitrum and Solana for rewards and token incentives. We use Filecoin to store the data, and we will soon use one project that provides CPU power, so we can run some proprietary weather forecasts. So, I mean, a couple of years ago, I was assuming that would have been really hard in the Web3 space. So it was an idea, but in reality, I was worried that it will never happen. So what is your current situation, and how do you see AI accelerating this?
Maybe I can start. I think what we see as our next move is really around MPC, and in the context of trust. The previous talk was talking a lot about trust and the importance of trust with AI, and that's what we believe as well. So in all those integrations and composability, how do you ensure that all the layers that you're using can be trusted? So it's really, really important to understand that with AI and AI agent in particular, we'll be delegating a lot of our lives, a lot of our financial life as well. So we need to make sure, or personally, I want to make sure that any agent or any AI service I use can be trusted from end to end. And that's what we believe. So integration is great, composability is great, but we need to find a way to attest that the entire chain and the entire stack can be fully trusted.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting question. I think my simple answer is probably composability goes up, like if I had to answer it briefly. And the reason is that, especially if agents go in the direction of tool calling, like what you need is then, like if you want your service to be usable by agents, it means you probably need to have like a robust API or tool for the agent to use. And it means you probably need like associated documentation that explains to the agent like how to use that service or access that data. And you know, like if the pressure now is for every website or service to offer that access, then you might live in a world where now actually a lot of the internet's just like much more systematically documented in order for the primary customer to be AIs. And I think in that world, composability goes up a lot because you're designing everything for programmatic access.
Actually, you touched on an interesting point. The documentation that we are used of creating for developers so far is not very friendly for AI agents. At least that's my experience. But yeah, sure. David.
Yeah, so when we look at AI, we will attack a subset of the problem. So how AI interact with the real physical world. And we believe in that case, the robots probably be one of the natural marriage between AI and physics objects. And we think, a lot of things with the robots, it can do more than just a language model. And we think what GEODNET can do is power up the whole robots-based navigation system. So we are not provide precision location for robots, but also incorporate other physical objects they navigate in the real world, outdoors first, maybe indoors as well. And GEODNET will design to attack the problem. I think it's a interesting but very have a substantial influence in the coming future.
Yeah, I mean, our perspective is that we're built in a modular way. So use our storage, inference, fine-tuning, layer one, service marketplace, DA, all of it at once, or just one component. And so we highly believe in composability and modularity from that perspective. That being said, with AI, my perspective is that the ultimate form of composability is to abstract it away. We live in a world where you can go to a Replit agent, give a prompt, and it builds an entire app for you. In our hackathon in Korea, we actually had a team that replicated that for us to build smart contracts on our layer 1 and have the AI agent basically figure out what components to use. And so you don't even have to worry about it anymore. So I think that form of abstraction is now really possible with AI, so that you almost have like an assistant that then speaks to many, many other agents that then figure out what components to use in the future.
Yeah, I think things in the last couple of months have moved, have accelerated rapidly. And for example, in our project, we recently launched an MPC adapter for our weather API. And we also power prediction markets as a weather oracle. So theoretically today it is possible for an AI agent to use our weather services and market make in a weather prediction market. And I guess like we saw a couple of months ago AI agents trading, and that was news. So, but it's interesting, David, that you bring the physical aspect even more into this by having us think that this could actually happen by a robot and not by a software agent. So we run out of time. So thank you everyone for your participation here in this panel. Any like last words or news or latest developments in your project that you want to share, but very briefly, less than a minute, for the audience to find out more?
I kind of mentioned most of it. We just released Galileo testnet v3, fully EVM compatible, 2500 TPS. Our goal is to go to mainnet very soon at 10,000 TPS, so you can really build any application that you want. Again, we have an ecosystem fund, so if you're a builder, chat with us or the Zero-G team.
Yeah, so one thing updated to GEODNET is we currently almost reached 4 million revenue ARR, and we are targeting to hit 10 million very soon. And the other news is about we will release an application in Solana, and when Solana release its new cell phone.
Yeah, the phone will be awesome. The thing I'd flag for people who are here and want to travel even more, I would highly recommend coming to the Accelerate conference that we're hosting in New York City in May. I think it's going to be maybe the single biggest crypto thing that's happened in the US in a long time. It'll be awesome. May 22nd and 23rd in particular, I think will be of interest to this group.
From my end, we just launched an ecosystem fund with 1 million RLC token that will be allocating to builders in the AI space, builders who are looking for privacy-preserving solutions and decentralized infrastructure. Reach out. So it's just launched. We haven't funded anybody yet, so reach out to us if you are interested and if we can help you grow your business. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.